Hi, this is Patrick Conroy, and we're up to Chapter 10, Interest Groups. So we cover political parties. Interest groups are a little bit are more narrow than that. They might be aligned with the party, but they're very narrow on an issue, like coastal restoration would be a good example of an interest group. Or Southern Baptists, also an interest group. Interest groups pursue policy goals. So they have a very definite policy in mind, more funding for coastal restoration. They don't run candidates, and they're policy specialists, not generalists. They're narrowly focused on that policy. There are 24,000 interest groups. And with technology and social media, this aids in their lobbying to get laws changed or enacted, because they can really get the word out quickly to a lot of their people who can then make phone calls, make donations, things like that. Now, this is like the plus side of pluralism. There's the group theory of politics, and the groups provide a key link between people and government. So people are interested in this group, they're linked to the government. And groups compete, so they have to be debating their ideas with each other. With this, no one group is likely to dominate, and groups usually play by the rules of the game. And groups weaken one resource can use another group to help them with that area. Sort of trade off in helping each other. The truth is, some groups are stronger than others, and all interests do not get an equal hearing. The downside is that the real power is held by a few. It doesn't matter what you think individually or what cause you're giving to. And that 79% of Americans share this view. Like, doesn't matter. It's all going to be the rich who decide how things are run. And that they're directorates who make the decisions, as well as multinational corporations. And the lobbying that goes on is mainly for large corporate interests, and it benefits few at the expense of many. So that's the flip side of people who are against interest groups. Hyperpluralism. This is the theory that there's so many interest groups out there, and they all want the government to do something, whether it be coastal restoration, whether it be support for homeschoolers or medical care. And there are all these groups out there, and so the government tries to appease them all. Well, what that means is budgets, programs, and regulations expand. And you can get contradictory and confusing policy results and budgets. It all comes back to budgets. What makes an interest group successful? Sometimes small groups can be the most effective because they are intense. They can get strong financial resources if the group has intense feelings. This is their number one issue. This is all they care about. Maybe it's pro-choice, maybe it's pro-life. This is their number one issue. So people get very intense feelings, which means they donate more. Sometimes the smaller groups have an advantage. They can always, there's a potential group of people who are interested in this issue. But when they try to actually get members to pay, that becomes the actual group. And they have to come up with policies for the collective good. Sometimes what the free rider problem is that sometimes, as we look at laws passed by Congress, there's the main thing, and then there are all these little rider issues that may not be related in any way, but they've been stuck on there by a congressman who says, I won't vote for your bill unless this is put in it. And sometimes that's just more who has political pull in Congress than the actual what's good for everybody. And sometimes the benefits can be very selective. As I said, intensity, that can give a psychological advantage. A lot of these groups, they prey on fears and they're on the rise, and they're like, no compromise. We will go down with this gun in my hand. Some examples are gun control and abortion. Financial resources. Hey, the system is biased towards the wealthy. Donations lead to access. Because remember, politicians are always needing to campaign, which requires money. So they are going to be meeting with groups that can give them money. But money does not always lead to lobbying success, because the other side contributes too. And there are often bigger interests on both sides. Sometimes a wealthy group might form an alliance with a poor group, but the system is biased towards the wealthy. How groups try to shape policy? Well, there's lobbying. Then there's electioneering. These say get out the vote to their people to go vote for a certain candidate. Litigation, taking it to the courts. Hey, we think this law is unconstitutional, we're going to litigate. Social media and going public, rallies, Facebook groups, all of those things. Twitter, X. Lobbying. Okay, sometimes lobbies are full-time and sometimes they're temporary. Lobbies are often former legislators. They get paid a lot more for lobbying than they did as a congressman. Okay, so the plus side. Lobbyists provide specialized expertise. They have been educated and are experts on their policy. And they can help with political and campaign strategy and provide ideas. All great things. Aiding candidates financially. So this is a little bit, gray, because yes, that they're helping the candidates financially, but is the candidate switching their opinion because they're getting this lobbying and these financial aid, or are the interest groups picking candidates who already have their policies as a priority? They can help people get volunteers for candidates' campaigns. Forming PACs, political action committees. In the 2017-2018 cycle, there were 6,446 PACs. That's a lot. Donations to a PAC is 5,000 limit in primary and general election. Remember, super PACs are different. Mainly they support incumbents, and expensive campaigns mean candidates need PACs. Should PACs be eliminated? It's really hard to do because we have the First Amendment rights to voice our opinions politically and to form groups. So that's protected. So it's hard to eliminate a PAC. Litigating, suing for enforcement. Sometimes a law is passed, but no one goes out and enforces it, like with environmental regulations or civil rights groups. An amicus curiae brief means it's usually filed with the Supreme Court. It's like, hey, we are not a party to this lawsuit, but here's our opinion on it. Class action lawsuits. Those can get a lot of people involved in a suit to make a major policy change. Once again, it's because the law is either being unenforced or the law might be unconstitutional, or some duty that the government has is not being followed through with. Mobilizing with social media. So you can get your message out to like-minded people. It makes communication faster, and it allows two-way conversations. This is a way of getting public opinion to help your cause. And it allows for marketing the group's reputation and issue stances. Because, it's much cheaper to use social media than to send out a mailer to 1 million people. Types of interest groups. Well, they're economic interests, environmentalist interests, social equality interests, and consumer and other public interest lobbies. So these are the main ones. Economic interests, laborers, unions, union shop versus right to work. What right to work means is the union can't dictate that only union members can be hired. Or that now it's more like they can't automatically deduct from the paycheck union dues for people who are even members. We're seeing unionization expanding in the public sector. The public sector is like the government. Businesses, they dominate lobbying impacts. And they use their workers to lobby on their behalf. But there are policy differences among the different industries, but they are powerful. Environmental interests. This started to become a bigger issue after 1970. Now there are more than 10,000 groups with 2.9 billion in revenue. A high percentage of US adults participate, and this could be like Sierra Club to hunting groups to all sorts of different groups. There's a profound impact on public policy. Control pollution, combat global warming, preserve endangered species, protect wild wilderness, and to oppose specific activities like strip mining or clear-cut forests. See, the 14th Amendment guarantees equality, but there still needs to be some interest groups to make sure that equality is happening. So that could be like the NAACP in Brown versus Board of Education. That's an interest group that got involved and helped finance the suit, Brown versus Education. Social welfare policies, another equality interest. Women, the National Organization for Women, which is now. Planned Parenthood, Equal Rights Amendment. Consumer groups. Okay, so a consumer group might want policies in the public interest rather than the business interest. So there might be the Consumer Product Safety Commission, consumer buying power, buying or declining to buy because of companies' values. So this is when you hear about boycotts. We're going to boycott this company because of what they're doing. And whereas we're an interest group, and that's what we're doing. We're not really lobbying the government. We are boycotting this business. Other types of public interest groups, there are those who can't speak for themselves for whatever reason. Good government groups who just want transparency in government, and religious groups. Does pluralism prevail? Well, with the growth, when you have more and more interest groups, there's less clout for any one group. But, wealthy groups tend to dominate. And, the business PACs are going to have the most power because they have money. Sometimes all this does is create more gridlock. And some of the things about interest groups is, once you have, and this is my personal opinion, once you have formed a group and you're getting donations, one of their interests is keeping the group going rather than the policy. So the group, you don't want to fire everybody, especially if you'd have to fire yourself. So even if you've made great advances in the interest, you still have an interest in keeping the interest group going, because anytime you have any sort of organization, perpetuating that organization becomes a goal. Interest groups in the scope of government. it's very difficult to reduce spending when you have all these interest groups lobbying for money and trying to please everybody. And it's a groups lead to policy, and the policy prompts new groups to form. So something gets, a group forms to pass this legislation. Well, then another group's going to form to try to block that legislation. It's kind of a vicious circle. Okay, that's it for this week. Have a great week.